Hello, and welcome to Reanimated. This is Stuart, your host person, one of them. And joining me is H.A. Conrad on the East Coast.
Good morning. I just took a very good sip of good coffee.
It's good to do a pregnant pause before you introduce yourself. We are Reanimated, as you may have gathered. We missed a week here, so sorry if we're throwing off your regularly listening schedules. This fall, I swear to everything, has been a complete beast for illnesses. I think.
You were felled. Was it the plague you were worried about, or a new plague entirely?
I have no idea. At the end of the day, I don't know. But it was some sort of flu.
Ooh.
Whether it was a stomach flu or the normal flu, it expressed itself in a variety of shitty ways. So
Well,
I was laid out for 3 days. And
well,
so I missed the podcast.
in flu news, apparently, it has peaked much earlier than they normally see. So, like, over 50% of the U.S. is at, like, a moderate to high level, and they normally don't see this until much later.
I didn't even have a chance to get a flu shot. I mean, we've just been sick. We've
Yeah,
been sick
'cause it's hard
all
to
the
get
time.
It's hard to get it when you're under the weather. So
Yeah, and I feel like they didn't start offering it until late September.
well,
And I'm like, if I can't get on this before then, it's not happening. It's not going to work.
So the weird thing, it's kind of interesting just generally talking about sort of the public service CDC recommendations. So they always, like, at least here in New York, you start seeing people pushing it in like August. And apparently, and this happened last flu season, because last flu season actually went a lot later than people thought. So people were there was still sort of like very high level of activity in the spring and even in the summertime. So then they were like, well, you shouldn't get your flu shot until October. And I think that that's really hard, especially if you have kids who are, they're going out.
Get back to school.
Going back to school and all that. And, I don't know. I think it's all a difficult thing. And, but I wish you good health. I hope you're on the upswing.
Me too, man. Thanks. I also wish good health to Samoa, which is having a heck of a measles outbreak.
Yeah. Did you see they're even like, they have people putting like signs out of their house, and then they're going to go in and do vaccinations, but
they're arresting anti-vax mouthpieces too, which I don't know. It's definitely crossing a line.
Yeah, but it's crossing a line. But I mean, like, if you're trying to like protect, I don't know. Like, I don't know what the answer is, but I also think they're in trouble over there.
They are in trouble, and I say that I don't personally believe that that's like a gray issue. I believe that it's very black and white. You should get your vaccinations. But around where I live, there are a contingent of ultra left wing sort of people who don't want you to impose the government's will on their bodies. So.
Yeah, I don't know. I just guess like the only like you know where I stand on this, and
yes,
I know
we are aligned on this.
I am just when you see the things that happen to kids, especially who can't really, I mean, there's a reason why, like, we've had fewer, like, this is a protection, and then you also have people in the population whose kids can't get vaccinated because of immunocompromised what conditions that they might have. And so I just feel like the fact that we've lost herd immunity and that there isn't alignment on this is just bananas. But I will stop.
It's not the immunocompromised exceptions that I think create defeat the herd immunity. It's the personal belief exemptions, which have been running rampant, and that's why actually the governor here I believe they've tried to close that loophole, and then there was a big fight in Sacramento about it. Either way, I don't know if this is not the vaccination podcast, so I guess we should.
Well,
although there's a lot of overlap, frankly.
Yeah, but I don't know. I feel like I don't know if we talked about this at the time that it happened, but so in New York, especially, a lot of the people that have the religious exemptions happen to be in the ultra-Orthodox Jewish community here in New York.
Right, yeah.
There's also a community upstate, and upstate there was an outbreak of measles, and then I think something else. And they actually put something, and it's been a legal battle because it was like they were basically saying, no, we need to get everybody vaccinated up there, and then it really starts to cross the line. And I definitely have this feel like an uncomfortable like when we're talking about people being forced to be vaccinated, and in this case they didn't say that, but they basically said if you weren't vaccinated you were not allowed to attend school. No matter, there was no exception given at that point. And so there is like this weird line where it's like you know, how do you force people to do something that they really don't want to do? And I don't know, it's just a tough I know it's a tough thing to talk about and a tough thing to kind of muddle through, for for a variety of reasons. But it's also, the reason why they decided to put this particular town decided to put these rules in place was because it was so bad and they were having like children die. So I don't know. We can't solve the world with our vaccination discussions, I suppose.
I suppose that we cannot. But
But
we can perhaps change the world, save the world through our discussion of zombie news. And so I suggest that we move on to that.
sweet. So we had talked a little bit about this. We watched the trailer for it, and this is the new Walking Dead series that they are unveiling. And The World Beyond is there is definitely a different tone to it. And I think we had talked about this when we first saw the trailer for it, is that it doesn't like it doesn't feel like Fear the Walking Dead or Walking Dead in sort of like the world that they've set up. It feels a little different. Which
I believe my critique initially was that these kids seem too well groomed.
right.
And I guess now, given the backstory that these are the helicopter people,
Yep.
maybe there's a way that makes sense, and
Right.
and they really can spend that much time on their eyebrows. If that's the case, I will let that argument go by the wayside. But I hope that if this story really is that a bunch of kids like voluntarily or sneakily or are cast out of the community, I hope that they get dirtier and their eyebrows become less coiffed.
Yeah, it's an interesting choice. But I think it's also in some ways to mark that delineation between what we're seeing in the original series and what we're seeing in this series. And in this series, they've been living in this world. Most of them have grown up in the world. And I guess quaffing is really an important sort of place where you do put your resources. I do like Julia Ormond quite a bit, so I'm excited to see this.
It's great to see a name like that attached to this project for sure.
Right. And look, obviously we're going to give it a chance, and I don't know. I like so far the storyline seems a little bit jarring to me, or like it's almost like there are moments of levity. They've done this in The Walking Dead too, but not quite to this level. And I'm wondering how far they're going to get in Walking the Line, like where it's like too much comedy, I guess. So, again, reserve judgment until we see it. But
Yeah,
so
all we've
far,
seen is seconds of footage.
right.
So it's too early to tell. But we're getting closer to realizing this dream of having Walking Dead content year round, which
Yeah.
means that we might never get to lay down our microphones as a podcast.
But next up was something that I saw this, and I actually had not added it in, and then you added it in.
I don't know why I like this actor, Mark Dacascos. He's so familiar. He's like the host of Iron Chef America.
Yeah.
Is another one of his hats that he wears. But he's been in a million action movies. He's like a
Yeah.
martial artist. He was in a Netflix show about Chinatown in San Francisco this past summer. I forget what that was called, like Spirit Warrior or something. He has been in a lot of action movies, and now he's making a zombie movie. So I was like, okay, sure.
Yeah, and this stars not only him, but his real world wife and one of his children is
His
also
real
in
world
this.
daughter, and they're playing those roles, which is weird.
Yeah.
It's pretty
So
weird.
I don't know. I saw the trailer for this. I'm happy to watch it, but it looks a little rough to me.
Yeah, it's gonna be bad. Okay, I accept that.
A little rough.
But he's gonna roundhouse kick some zombies,
Yep. And I
comrade.
mean,
So
maybe it's just worth it for the martial arts scenes, but It was, I think maybe contributing to my feeling about this was the voiceover in the trailer because it was like so overly dramatic. And do you remember the guy that used to do a lot of the voiceovers? And I think unfortunately like he passed away, but it was like in a world
Of
like
course.
trailers. That's what it reminded me of. And it felt almost like a parody of this kind of a movie. But anyway, I it's not like we haven't reviewed movies that we thought were cheesy before, so I guess we can do that.
This is already out on streaming. I'm
Yeah,
not sure what its real life story was, but it's out there. So yeah, we might get around to reviewing The Driver,
yeah.
starring Mark Dacascos.
But you know, ahead of that, maybe we should like it's coming out in 2020 on Prime. But there is, I know what everybody's been waiting for is Narcos versus Zombies. You know, what do you do when you combine the storyline of like Colombian drug lords with zombies? This
I believe these are
apparently.
Mexican drug lords.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So you've got this amazing property on Netflix with people like Pedro Pascal and
Love him.
other like super high quality actors and great writing and production. And you're like, yeah, you know what we could do with this?
Let's make a zombie drug lord movie. But you know, I will say I'll give it a shot. It seems like worth at least delving into. It's not like we
It's an
hold
eight.
ourselves back.
Yeah, it's an eight. It's going to be an 8 episode series or mini series, whatever you might want to call that, on Amazon Prime. Sounds like it might be original, like produced by them. I doubt it'll get top billing like their Jack Ryan. It's not going to be any Jack Ryan or Carnival Row or any of these. Actually, I kind of enjoy their original content
Me
when they
too.
put them out. Goliath is a good show, but I don't think this is going to get the same sort of attention.
I don't know. They can dream.
So that brings us to the end of our paltry news. So we're all going to be keeping an eye out on the World Beyond. Is that what it's called? World,
World Beyond. Yep.
the World Beyond, The Driver, and versus Zombies. But let's now take a step back into The Walking Dead season 9, episode 7, and talk about Stradivarius and then Evolution, the two episodes we're talking about today.
Yeah.
Stradivarius is a special episode because it was directed by Abraham himself, Michael
know.
Cudlitz, and written by Vivian C. It had a pretty paltry audience of 4.79 million, but you know what? We'll come back from that in Evolution with a few 100,000 more people.
Yeah.
This episode is a getting to know the new guys episode a lot.
Yeah.
And it works on that, and it also still continues to work on developing the Whisperer's big bad plot line.
Right. And so this is, with Michonne basically had railed against the group led by Magna to have them stay in Alexandria, but she thinks it's a great idea for them to go to Hilltop. And I remember being really troubled by this. Weren't you bothered by this?
It's like, well, you're not good enough for us, but
Right.
maybe Hilltop will take it.
And
yeah.
and also like, and again, this is one of those things where I just, come on, writers, come up with something slightly more, I don't know, like believable, because clearly, and they've implied this, there was a little bit of an implication of this in the last episode, definitely in this episode, but clearly Michonne's had some kind of a falling out with Maggie or with Hilltop in general, and Alexandria and Hilltop are not like the close allies that we have seen in the past or that you would imagine they would be.
Yeah, and I'm not remembering, even after having watched this whole season and watched up to where we are in season 10, it's not clear to me now what that falling out was with Hilltop.
No, and that's the thing. It's like they do, and this is one of those things that just annoys me so much, where everybody like dances around the issue and just doesn't want to talk about it, and it's just this unsaid thing. It's like, no, just freaking say what happened. And I mean, you can sort of draw conclusions based upon later conversations between Michonne and others, but it sounds like basically Michonne was like, okay, we're each kind of in our own camps. We're not going to really have that much fraternization. We're not going to cooperate that much, only cooperate to the level you can, but her goal is to just protect her people. So she's not looking at them all as sort of this collective group of survivors,
Yeah.
like a team, I guess, and she's
I
just
would
more.
I would infer from this that it's just the passage of time, and the fact that yeah, because Hilltop started this protectionist isolationism BS with
Hmm.
the we're not giving you the thing until we get the ethanol
Right,
stuff
right.
earlier this season. So potentially yes, this is 5 years down the road with that, and relationships are strained. Yeah, that could be all it is.
And also, she lost Rick, and part of why Rick died was because of this BS that was going on between the communities. And
And yet that has not been addressed. I mean,
no,
I
but
think it is with Daryl. Daryl is bearing all the weight of that in this season, in this half of the season so far, because Lauren Cohan just straight up went to make a really bad TV show,
yeah, oh God,
Whiskey Cavalier. So
yeah,
she's not here to defend herself or her character,
nope.
and it's all on Norman Reedus. And so far, he hasn't actually. Has he? Did him and Carol talk about it yet? Like how he's still looking for him? I think he did, right?
Yeah, he
He's
talked about it, and then he
last
talks
episode.
about it. Yeah, and then he talks about it to Michonne at some point. Michonne, but my point is that the whole bringing this group of people that Michonne and the Alexandria people don't want to keep, but you know what, Hilltop will be an okay place for you. I just don't know that they would be welcoming to them. And
It doesn't seem like Michonne would know that either. Is the
right,
question,
right.
right?
So that was kind of strange. And then
But we also kind of learned that Michonne doesn't know what's going on. Like Sadiq
no,
is the one telling her, "Yeah, by the way, Maggie left a while back, and
right,
sorry we didn't tell you. Why aren't people telling Michonne things? Because
right, and then
obviously
that
she's been a little prickly
right,
since
and there's
the scarring episode.
right, and
We
there's
find out.
there's also clearly a lot of like, even though they're not telling Michonne things, there's still communication, obviously, between the two communities or
Yeah,
multiple communities. So, in any case, and then the whole very weak reason that Maggie is not there is that she's off with that crazy lady Georgie, building communities or something.
sending letters to Jesus.
Yeah.
Uh,
But
Carol and Henry also actually. Well, this episode starts with Rosita running through the woods and hearing voices, and she's got blood on her now.
yeah,
Where's Eugene? We don't know.
she passes out and then is conveniently discovered.
Well, she shoots a flare after she
Yeah.
passes out. It's very confusing.
Yep.
And what's his face, and Aaron and Jesus find her.
Yep.
But that's kind of it's a little
And
bit weird
okay.
how that plays out. And then we also have Henry and Carol arriving at Daryl's camp in this episode.
All right. And, this is leaking a little bit into the next episode, but all right, just the confusing part about Aaron and Jesus finding Rosita. So she manages to tell them that she's like, that she's trying, where Eugene might be or whatever, barely, but doesn't manage to tell them that there's more danger out there. And it's like, oh, come on. But anyway, sorry.
Yeah, it's a little. I mean, we haven't seen her how long she's been running or what she's been through, but she's a little bit like Rosita's kind of a cool cucumber, right? She
Yeah.
doesn't get flustered, but she's so freaked out in the beginning of this
Yeah.
episode that she's like hyperventilating. It's a little bit much
Yeah.
for it, or it's a side of her that we've never seen, which makes it a little bit of a tougher pill to swallow.
Right. And we'll talk more in the next episode about some of that, but, and other character reactions. But, we've also got, Daryl's, whole thing in the woods here with Carol and Henry and, this is, they've basically convinced Daryl to like come to Hilltop. Carol really wants him to look out for Henry and teach him. And this is kind of like, I don't know, like I guess
It's
it
a
kind
weird request to make of Daryl.
it is a very strange request. And his whole
Be Henry's babysitter, please.
yeah, right. It feels a little odd, especially. I mean, look, I think obviously what she's trying to do is bring him back into sort of like the civilization a little bit. And she's clearly worried about him, and those two have always had that bond, and I thought that played out very nicely, and that was definitely shown. But even just watching sort of the interactions between him and Henry and some of the stuff Henry's been doing, like the stuff with the dog and the trap and all that stuff was like you can almost see Daryl's sort of like exhaustion at having to be the babysitter. So but that's for another, and that sets up other things later on. But he definitely feels an
it's
obligation to Carol, but it is a little weird.
it's pretty funny after they solve the whole issue with Henry and the zombies and the dog and the trap and everything, and then they show that cut to Carol just like they're watching, like she's watching them on the baby monitor. Just reminds me of like, behavior I've done with babysitters. It's like, okay, how are they going to solve this problem? Oh, okay, good job, Daryl.
But this is all, I mean, I feel like this episode did a ton to sort of set up different relationships, specifically the one with him and Henry. And then also between the new group to kind of get to know them a little bit better. And, you know, I like Michonne's kind of like going with them to determine whether their story is true or not. And so this is a little bit how we start to hear how the zombie horde is acting differently. Then they go to to their abandoned site, which is, was this, I guess this was supposed to be where they were initially rescued or running from the first time.
Yeah, where that Connex is turned over on its
Right.
side. Like, we're supposed to believe that was like a wagon, I guess?
Yeah?
That they were
I don't know.
towing a giant Connex with I assume horsepower.
Yeah.
It looks pretty crazy, kind of like a sand crawler or something
Yeah.
from Jawas. But, yeah, I don't know, like, yeah, their story checks out, I guess.
And then Luke is, you know, brings into that the whole character thing with Luke about how he rescues musical instruments, he's a musician, and all that kind of thing. And, you know, he does say a couple things like about music and about music being this balm and this healing thing and civilization, et cetera, et
Well,
cetera.
he says that after Michonne cuts the Stradivarius in half.
Yeah.
An original Stradivarius, what was it, like 1725,
Yeah.
1825?
Let's talk about this.
Those are tens of millions of dollars.
Well, they're also, I mean, you could make, so there are places where they do have them. One is, I think, the Met, and I think in one of the Smithsonian museums they have them as well. And the thing about those instruments is that you have to play them to keep them, and they do actually have musicians come in and play them. I don't know that any of them would have survived. I don't know that you're just gonna, maybe they're implying that somebody did raid a house and put it in their house, but I mean, it's kind of known where every single one of those is.
Actually, that's not true. Well, not based on what I read. There are like thought to be 600 left in existence, but only 200 or so of them are known where they are, is what I understand.
Yeah, I think that's up for debate. Because there's a lot of there's a lot that are not, it's hard to determine whether they actually are what they are. So, and you know, you'll see them, people come to market and they'll try to like get them confirmed, and it's just a very difficult thing to do. But regardless, so let's just say he has a Stradivarius. But
let's say for the sake of argument that he found a Stradivarius.
But
you're suggesting that it might not play so well if it hasn't been played daily.
Yeah. Well,
is
not
it daily.
It's not daily, but it is. You have to do it periodically, and you know, I don't know. They're also very like just instruments in general, like especially like they're very like humidity, all of that stuff is they have to be really taken care of, and I'm just not
out in the Virginia heat.
This isn't even in like a case. I like the whole thing is very odd.
True.
So anyway, let's just leave that part alone. But
Michonne cuts it in half. Anyway.
Michonne cuts it in half, so it's never going to be the same again.
And I like this scene in a way because she does show chagrin as soon as it happens, and people run into the room like, "What's going on?" And the look on Denai Guerrera's face is pretty great. Like she's like, "Well, crap."
Yeah,
you know, I did enjoy that, and then I like Luke's. You know, it's a way better version of the whatever the freaking guy's name, the beer brewers argument about beer being civilization. This one I kind of enjoy more.
Yeah, I enjoy it more. I believe it a little bit more.
Art is civilization. I mean, they're definitely pulling from the same, strings there, but I like this one.
And he's not quite as dickish as Jim was. So
Jim, thank you, Jimbo.
But anyway, we see a lot of character building. We hear like stories between, them just about their group and how they ended up together, and you see some of the bonds, and you can also see that resonating with Michonne in some of the stories that they're telling.
Yeah, They do a good job of building the dynamic, the character development between these characters. I agree. Like Magna's the surly one.
Yep.
Luke has his music thing. I forget the other two women's names. What are they? I know they're. It's Angel Theory and so and so. Is there? No, I don't remember. Any of their names.
There's Yumiko.
Yumiko, and she's the leader.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. They're coming together as people.
So anyway, we got that going on, and then we've also got, I mean, we sort of had jumped into it, but we also have the meeting between Jesus and Aaron, and also there's some stuff between Jesus and Tara, and Tara's just like, you know, you can't keep pretending like you're not leading everybody, and Jesus definitely seems like the reluctant leader, and he often apparently leaves Tara in charge while he goes out to hang out with Aaron. And he is teaching Aaron self-defense and all that kind of thing. And, you know, in their interaction, we learn about some of the, again, not totally clear about why, but there's definitely divide between the communities. And there's the whole kingdom doing their fair day or whatever, and Michonne doesn't want Alexandria to participate. So there's some conversation between them about that before they see the flare from Rosita. So I think that pretty much covers everything. Was there anything else in that?
Not quite. So there's also a big fight scene, well, which we kind of already covered. One of the things that they do nicely in this fight scene with the new group is
the new group fight
Luke
scene. Yep.
uses 2 car doors to stop zombies from walking towards him, which I thought was cool. They just show him like as a thinking man, right? He also his chosen weapon is a military pick. Medieval, I don't know what century weapon that's just basically like, it looks like a mining pick but way shorter. Really good idea for a weapon for the zombie apocalypse.
Right.
And he has graduated in season 10 to some sort of like insane flanged mace. So I really love the weapons that they give Luke. He has weapons that I would like to have in the zombie apocalypse.
He's got good weapons, but he also doesn't just use weapons, which I appreciate.
Exactly. Yes, that was good. And the other two, Connie and I can't remember the woman's name. They use these slingshots with great accuracy. Mm-hmm. So between them, like Magna is a knife thrower, I think mostly, but she'll also stab a Z in the face. Mm-hmm. They just, as a group, they're pretty great fighters.
Yeah.
And then after that fight, and Michonne and the little caravan are making their way closer to Hilltop, messengers arrive.
Oh, that's right.
From Hilltop, and they're wearing the hockey armor, and they've got the spears. And they're like, "Oh, there's a spear. Are you from Hilltop?" And Hilltop Messenger is none other than C. Thomas Howell. Did you notice his cameo?
I did, and I thought it was really awesome.
Freaking C. Thomas Howell from Red Dawn, from Gettysburg, from The Outsiders. Ponyboy himself shows up. He's billed as Hilltop Messenger, and he delivers his message with great, somberness, and then rides on.
Actually, what I really loved about that exchange is that Michonne's like, "Are you from Hilltop?" And I would have really loved if he'd said no. Like, of course he's from Hilltop.
I mean, he could have been from the Kingdom.
I don't know. It just was.
Yes.
Anyway. But yes, that's definitely. I felt like I wonder if he had requested to be in it, or they were just really excited to have him in it.
If you look at his filmography, this dude does not take weekends off. He is in so many projects all the time.
Right.
I'm sure he was just like, yeah, I'll do that. He must have requested it, because nobody of his caliber would get. I mean, it has 2 lines. But nobody
I just found the story. I just found the story, though.
Okay.
So
what is
apparently he is the friend of Michael Kudletz. And he actually said we needed somebody who could ride a horse and act. So I asked him to do it, and he said yes. So this was definitely something.
Wait, they don't have like a huge list of people in Atlanta who can ride a horse and act?
Come on. Michael Kudletz was just like, let's get
Let me get my boy C. Thomas Howell in here.
You know he was.
And then he's going to lift a AK-47 above his head and scream, "Wolverines!"
Oh my gosh, that would have been amazing. Anyway,
and then he shows up again in the next episode. You see him from across Alexandria, and people are like, "Oh, what's going on with that?" Either way, blew my mind. I very much enjoyed that. The next episode is called Evolution. Michael Satrazemis, written by David Leslie and Johnson Sorry, no, not David Leslie
Johnson
and Johnson McGoldrick.
McGoldrick.
David Leslie Johnson McGoldrick.
You know, all of his names. But yeah, so this one we got more character development in this one and more sort of pushing the story along. And I do like how they were moving this along. And this is this has a few Negan moments in it, some significant Negan moments, and basically Gabriel leaves Negan's cell unlocked, quote unquote, accidentally. I don't know that I'm totally convinced that it was accidental.
Oh, I know it was. You know it was.
I don't know. Gabriel's whatever. Anyway,
and Gabriel walks out, and it's not like he was the last one in there. There was a guard who had his handcuffs, so it wasn't Gabriel, I think.
Anyway,
it's a pretty short scene. It just shows that Negan's like not going to stick around.
Yeah, he's got
he's
like
not he's not the beaten dog that we might have taken him for at the end of this mid-season.
Yeah, and there's like that little grin, and that I actually kind of like that. Like he throws the ball and realizes that the thing's unlocked, and it's like But
we also have a scene with Jesus, Daryl, and Aaron on top of this hill looking down at a herd being weird and like walking in circles, and they're like, this is weird, this isn't usual. And then one of the zombies stops and looks up after they walk away.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, yeah, we're all like, what's going on with these zombies, guys? This entire episode is actually just like one really long build up to Jesus getting stabbed. I feel like.
Yeah, but it's a good build up, and I do think that they did a nice job at building the tension and building the sort of weirdness about what's happening.
And we get a nice subplot about Henry being a drunken, idiotic teenager. We've seen this plot line of teenagers or people getting wasted in the zombie apocalypse. And what's your feeling?
So my feeling is that Henry, this is the antithesis of what Henry would do. Like, I think that he certainly had a crush on Enid and is bummed out because he sees that she's with, what's his face? You know who I'm talking about, the Alden. I think that based upon the values that he has, I just don't see him. He knows enough about what is dangerous out there. He knows enough and he just like kind of came through and saw a bunch of it with Carol when he came through. I just don't see him playing into this peer pressure like situation in the way that he did. But again, they're doing it for a reason. So, you know, there's these three teenagers and they're like, oh, let's go outside the wall and let's like, you know, drink and let's like do. It just felt like stupid to me. I didn't feel like it was believable. It felt a little ham-handed. And then it gets to the point, I mean, I do like how when the sort of like crisis moment in this, not crisis moment, but like where they finally build it up and the kids have a zombie in a pit and they've been, you know, kind of toying with him or doing weird stuff with him. And I do like how Henry, despite the fact that he's a little bit inebriated, is like, no, this is not what you do. And just, this is a threat, and he takes it out. And
yeah, then he gets left outside. Like, it's frustrating because these are young, dumb people being young and dumb. Then he gets left outside, and then they don't show him getting back inside, but they do show him getting thrown in jail almost right away.
But again, I think that, look, they have to be strict about it, and I get that, and I think they definitely need to teach him a lesson. And the blacksmith that he had come to apprentice with is none other than the person that we had seen before, who I think has a lot of empathy for this particular issue. And when Henry is certainly contrite and apologetic, gives him a second chance, but does say, hey, that's great, but you're going to have to stay in the drunk tank for a couple of days. And that, you know what, I'm okay with that. I don't like where it sort of, how it was built up, but that's all right.
Well, eventually, that is a good subplot, but that is really one of the only other subplots in this episode.
Right. But then the biggest part of this is obviously...
this search for Eugene, who they do find. We also have Rosita wakes up in the hospital and then leads another contingent of Hilltoppers out to get to find them. What was it that you wanted to say about Rosita and her you had mentioned in the last when we were talking about the last episode that you had some feelings about her character. I think in this episode, or no?
Well, it was like, she's they just sort of played the sort of dramatic thing where it's like, oh, Eugene's out there, and then the minute she wakes up, it's suddenly like, oh no, it's you guys don't know, and you don't know what's going
Yeah,
on out there, and it was just so ridiculous, and it's like, no,
they're
just tell
whispering
them,
now.
just tell
Yeah,
them that there's something weird happened with the walkers. Like, I dislike the sort of slow lead up to it, and that's the only part that I was like, there are some funny parts with her and Eugene where he keeps trying to declare his love for her, and she's like, "Oh God, don't do it,"
yeah,
and so
yeah.
she keeps trying to avoid that. I like her character, and we've also got stuff going on. I mean, we had seen that her and Gabriel are currently together, but she does have a dedication to Eugene. I mean, they've been together forever. In
Yeah.
terms of
She's one of
like,
his original bodyguards, I
yeah.
guess. Um,
So anyway, there's like a bunch of people out looking for him, and we see build up with this. Like, we see
it's
the
a
different.
it is pretty good. The build up with Aaron and
Yeah,
Jesus and Daryl, and the some of the shots that they have of them, like with the flashlights and the fog. There's some pretty like good overhead shots of that going on, and the and Eugene telling them like, "Oh no, that herd is coming back. They're looking for me. They're not like normal zombies. They've evolved." And and
yeah,
then people are like,
and I do like how Daryl and like Daryl and Jesus and Aaron are all the look they give Eugene is like, you've kind of lost it, man. Like, and until they actually see the behavior themselves, and they come up with this whole plan to turn the herd away from everybody, and it doesn't work. And Daryl has like all of Daryl's little bag of tricks does not work, and so that is actually I like that moment when it's like they're not doing what you expect them to do.
yeah, the firecracker moment is when you first actually see a whisperer driving the
Yep.
herd.
Yep. But you
And
don't.
Daryl's watching that too, and he tells the dog to even shut up, and and then they end up in the cemetery, which is a little trite, but it's also and it's super foggy, like pea
Yep.
soup.
Yep.
But that all lends to this whisperer showdown or reveal,
Right. And I
which
do like.
doesn't take too long to happen either, which I'm kind of grateful for. Even though it's kind of been building up all episode, it's
Yeah.
then all of a sudden. I have a few issues with the way that this plays out, but overall, I like the fact that it happens. But like for Jesus to be the one who's so easily taken out, it's not like Jesus has a really telegraphed way of fighting. He's always jumping off of things and punching and doing air chops and stuff. And I'm like,
Right.
how does a someone who's pretending to be a zombie, not exactly on the balls of his feet, do like a no look duck then stab into the armpit of flying kung fu man, you know?
Yeah, I agree with you on that. But I also think that the point they were trying to make, and sort of successfully made it, was that these are not, they have all become used to fighting the walkers like they are. And so he thought that particular walker was dispatched, that he didn't have to worry about him. And so when they're giving this resistance back, or at least like standing up, or like that's what sort of threw him off. But I agree with you, it didn't seem to make total sense the way it happened, but at least it made more sense than Carl getting bitten somehow by a walker randomly
On the stomach.
on
Yeah.
the stomach that he wouldn't notice. But I did think that it was pretty dramatic the way that they used the fog, and the way that they, the realization, not just that these are like, it was this sort of like horror when they realized that these are actually people sewed up into walker skin, which is pretty disgusting.
Pretty messed up. And the whispering grows to a crescendo.
Yeah.
So I guess my other issue with this reveal is have you watched any season 10?
No, not yet.
Well, darn. All right. So earmuffs, Conrad, but no, not really. It's just
I don't care.
The motivations for the Whisperers is confusing to me because they do seem to be a group that recruits.
Yeah, but they also hate people, so that's
But
weird.
they're killing these people on sight, and it's not like they have established territory at this point. The only line of dialogue that leads me to believe that they are, I think they're newly in the area, clearly, because this has not been an issue during the big war between Negan
Right.
and everybody. Somebody says in this episode of the previous one, there are more zombies around than usual. or there's more and more all the time. Something like that happened. One line like that, and then all of a sudden now they're just killing people because of territory. But
Right.
how did they go about their recruitment ordinarily then? And it's certainly like recruitment for them appears to be a fairly major
Thing.
thing that they do. At least in season 10, it seems like they are actively recruiting. And so I don't understand why they would come out with knives first.
Right. And also, it's, yeah, agreed.
And
Agreed.
it's not as if they're going after a settlement. I understand that they don't like settlements. In their philosophy, they think that settlements are a dishonest way of living. Like what they do is the honest way of living. And I know I'm
It
getting way
always,
ahead,
no, 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 but
but
I mean, they address some of this in this season too, but like, it totally, their whole thing doesn't make sense to me.
oh yeah,
So, and I feel like they ran into some problems with it, and, because it doesn't make sense. Because, like, how would you even recruit people to do this? And what kind of a life are you actually leading? Like, sorry, but just sort of, and think about the amount of time and energy it takes to, like, be walking around with these herds all day. I don't know. It just feels like, I don't know. And you're right. Like, how do they determine who they want to recruit? It doesn't make sense at all.
it certainly doesn't feel like they're trying to recruit anybody in this group who are clearly a bunch of badasses. And
Right.
maybe that's the problem is they don't recruit people who
Yeah.
so clearly seem to have their kung fu together.
Yeah.
And the thing that the whisperer whispers to Jesus is, "You're somewhere that you're not supposed to be," or something along those
Yeah.
lines. You're not
Yeah.
supposed to be here. Which to me, like I said, that's why I'm like, okay, this is territorial, but they haven't established any sort of like lands yet. They can't have. They just got here.
Right. And of course, these people have been here long before them. So, anyway.
It's curious. So this is the exit for Tom Paine,
Yep.
who played Paul Jesus Rovia, and he made no secret about the fact that he was pretty happy to get off the show because clearly they had wasted his character. I feel like the showrunners always leaned too hard into his like Gen X slacker type, whatever his
Yeah.
mentality was of like, I'm not really into leadership or scouting or being a member of a community. And so he never really got any meaty roles or yeah, no arcs.
Yeah, and I felt bad because I actually really like this character. Um, so it made me. I was sad to see him go because I did feel like there was an opportunity for him with Maggie gone, and maybe that wasn't known enough, or maybe they didn't like tell him enough cool things that he was going to be able to do. But yeah, he seemed to be pretty thrilled to be done with it. So I don't know. I did like his. It was sad to me. Like, I actually was very upset when this happened because I felt like they could have done so much more with this character, and it did feel like a waste to me.
Yeah. So adios, Tom Paine. He, he wasn't gonna last long anyway because he was one of those like moral compasses kind of people. But he never even really got a chance to grow into that. So
I
that was
know.
part of the
He
downside.
didn't. I feel like he's like in a new show, or he was cast in something. Uh, what is it? Yes. So he was this past year, maybe.
Prodigal Son?
Yeah. Which I have not seen,
No.
but
Oh,
I'm glad.
Fox.
But I'm glad to see that he's getting work anyway, because I like him a lot. So anyway, but farewell, Tom Paine. All right, so I think that pretty much wraps it up.
Yeah.
And I would say like the one last thing, just in terms of sort of not that it completes, but it sort of continues the arc, is that we do see that Magna, Yumiko, like, are all like pitching in to help, and this is Tara had said something to the new group when they arrive, is that they can stay, but they're gonna have to basically earn their keep and be sort of active members, and so this is them jumping in to help when it's not something directly related to their own little group.
Yeah, and that's good.
So I thought
Obviously,
that was
this
good.
means that they're in with us too. Like they're buying their way into the audience as well as
Right.
to the hilltop, and so I'm happy to see that. I do want to just quickly flashback to Tara's kind of cool reception of Michonne.
Oh yeah,
And again, this just underscores my question mark, I guess, that I have. Like,
Yeah.
why would Tara have beef with Michonne at this point, other
Right.
than they're just rusty and they haven't seen each other in 4 years? I would still, I don't know. It's just I don't get it. And I don't know if I'm forgetting some major plot point that
See,
is unveiled.
I was trying to remember it too, and maybe like as we watch, something will be revealed. But I don't feel like they ever actually reveal exactly what happens. It's just there's some comment from Michonne a little bit like further on about how they're watching out for the communities, and I think Aaron says something to her about agreeing with her.
But they have to disarm before they even are allowed into Hilltop. I mean, that's
Yeah, that's
BS.
weird. So anyway, I agree with you. I felt like this was a little muddier than it should have been, and it did feel weird. And so, but we'll, I guess, find out more as the season progresses, and maybe there will be that puzzle piece that we're not remembering because it's been a while, obviously.
True. Could definitely be out there. I guess that's it. So next time we're going to talk about season 9, episodes 9 and 10, adaptation and Omega. And this, I believe, episode 8 is the mid-season finale. So
Yep.
once we come back, we're on the bottom half of the season, and we will continue that review series. You can reach us to comment on what are those websites called? Reanimatedpodcast@gmail.com. We're ReanimatedPcast on Twitter, and our show notes are at reanimatedpodcast.com.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you, and bye-bye.
Ciao.